Right, welcome everyone to our podcast with Jack Baxter Mills, who has a very interesting company called Raw Digital. I'm going to introduce you straight away to Jack, and before I dive into some questions, which I've got, which I think the listeners, I hope, will find interesting. Jack, why don't you just tell us what Raw is?
Oh, good question. Well, it's ever evolving, Neil. But what Raw is as a core business is helping companies specifically within property, and it makes up about 75% of our clientele, helping them lead generate, so generating leads in all sorts of different ways, whether that be through organic means, so Google SEO, and PPC, so the paid ads that you see at the top. So any way to get your property company featured either at the top of Google or somewhere on the first page, or even on social channels, just to get you out there to the right audience that's either looking to sell property, looking to buy property, landlords, which of course every business needs, and especially within property, it's those are the core elements, aren't they? So, but it's getting better visibility for your company to the right people, I think, is a good way to segment it.
All right, before we dive in, I mean, people who know this Singerville business in London and SV International, our partners, know that we are heavily involved in the digital space. I have been for many years. And what's been an interesting journey for me is that if you roll me back 15 years, I was the same as every other agent in town, where I've been whispering a word here, whispering a word there, and in fact, what I used to, my modem of operation in those days was like 95% of the market was, well, I know someone, I'll make a phone call. Whereas we've gone completely the other way, in that we saw the power of digital. I think the turning point was back in probably about 2009, where we put a Google Analytics code behind our website, and we saw that people were hitting our website from all over the world.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I thought to myself, well, if you're not digital, you're nowhere. And in fact, a friend of mine actually had also sold his digital business, which also did inspire me a bit, actually. So we've seen we've actually seen the change, and the property industry. Everyone says property has been slow to change. I think it's actually speeded up recently. I think COVID has speeded it up. I don't think it changed things. I just think it accelerated the change. But it's quite hard for property agents to understand the world of digital. And I can tell you that because I talk to them all the time.
They know bricks and mortar, don't they? And even if you think your example 15 years back, whereby people would find a property agent either by word of mouth, or indeed they would go down the high street and see the abundance of property agents that are shop front. So what Google is essentially doing now is that is your online shop front. So instead of having people walking by on the high street, you've got people Googling and going down the Google digital high street and trying to find agents that way. So that's how it's evolved.
Yeah, it's exactly. But it's surprising to me, and it remains surprising to me, that I can't really talk so much for the residential market, but in the commercial market, commercial agents still haven't yet really embraced the world of digital. They find it a irritant rather than actually using it to their best effect. I think there's a bit of people who are senior in the industry didn't grow up with digital. So in teaching their tricks of the trade to younger people, they can't teach them about digital because they don't know it. In fact, of course, it's the younger people who understand digital more than the older people. There are a few exceptions. There are a few agencies who actually have made a bit of a noise, but most don't really understand it. So the first thing, I think, if I've got some specific questions for you, which I thought the people listening might find interesting, is how you find your customers is key to any business, not just property, to anybody. And I think it's quite interesting to understand how that has changed in the last 10 years. How do you find your customer today compared to how you used to find your customer 10 years ago?
Wow, what a question. Well, I'll tell you a little story about when I started my career, and obviously my career hasn't expanded as long as yours has, but 13, 14 years ago.
Careful, Jack, careful.
I know there's not too much of an age gap between us. But 14-ish years ago when I started, because I started an agency quite similar to what Raw is today. This was fresh out of university, but we had a tiny office in East Putney, and we had a couple of desks and a couple of phones. And it was a simple matter of Googling the whatever industry it was at the time, and seeing whether or not they were doing a paid ad or they had any feature on the first page of Google, and picking up the phone and making cold calls to these companies, essentially saying your digital presence is not as good as it should be, and we can help with that. But making 200 odd calls a day and being rejected 95% of the time, that was the way that we did it, and that was the only way that you could do it, is by essentially doing a Google search, finding a phone number and calling them, saying that they can do Google and they'd get their visibility to be better than it is. Whereby now, if I fast forward to present day, I find the best way in order to add some value straight off the bat is by providing free advice. So doing the same type of thing that I'm doing at the moment, but saying, instead of we can do it for you and this is how much it's going to cost, and trying to build that relationship from a phone call, is giving them instructions as to how they can improve their digital presence by themselves, but almost a play-by-play. So you can improve various headings on your website, or you can try to do this, or essentially just giving them an instruction plan, completely free of charge, but with the premise that this is going to be a hell of a lot of work for them to do, and building that credibility and building that value, to then get them to say, well, actually, you guys seem as if you know what you're talking about. How much would it be for you to do it for us? But it's providing that free consultation, free advice that builds that credibility. And I think that's how it's changed. So it's far less picking up the phone now and making cold calls, but building initial trust by saying, have you looked at this? Have you seen that this has changed? What about AI and all of these kind of
But how do you?
nuanced questions
But
in there?
how do you find them?
Well, I guess the core of it hasn't changed. It is going onto the likes of Google and seeing what they're doing at the moment and seeing how they can improve it, but giving them advice as to how they can do that themselves. I think that's probably the biggest differentiator.
Yeah, it is very hard to measure the success. I mean, I've used a number of companies over the last 10 years to do search engine optimization, for example, and it's very, very difficult to measure the success, and it's very, very difficult for people who aren't really in the industry to understand that what they're paying is actually returning a return on investment. I mean, it's no different really to putting an advert on television, I suppose. You know, the big brands put an advert on TV and it costs a fortune, I assume, or on radio. In fact, there was a company, interesting enough, many years ago, there was a company, it was a specific agency, and they actually were very clever. It was called Nelson Bakewell, and they started advertising on LBC.
Mm.
And their presence on LBC was fantastic. And I don't remember, in fact, I can't think of an agency that has actually done that since. So they understood of how to reaching out, because the industry still is incredibly dependent upon the idea of relationships.
Yeah.
And oh, I know a buyer, I know a seller, etc. We find today it's just simple math. The reason we had this light bulb moment back in 2010 is because we were used to selling to a defined, small group of people. And once we saw that people could hit our website from all over the world, we thought, how on earth can you identify the buyer for a property when the marketplace has expanded so dramatically? I think,
Mm.
and that's how I think marketing has changed enormously. And yet, the commercial property industry still doesn't quite get it, and still doesn't really embrace it, in my opinion. I think there's what I find to be a very strange opinion amongst many agents, in that, well, the world of agency won't change because you need an agent. We are property agents who are experts, we're experts, etc. But I've done a lot of traveling in the last few years, and if you go to other countries, they seem to be a bit more advanced in appreciating that yes, you do need agents, but the role and the way they interact has got to change. You can't ignore the power of the internet. You just can't ignore it, and yet many people do. Don't get me wrong. Many people survive and make a very nice living like that, but I just don't see it to be a future. Every other industry has been completely disintermediated by technology. You know, you would never go to a travel agent to book an air flight today, would you? I mean, who would do that? But of course, in 10, 15 years ago, that's how you used to book all your flights, or
Yeah,
longer,
and
20 years ago.
it comes back to the whole shop window element, doesn't it? It's people walking down the high street going, actually, yes, I could do with a holiday, or yes, I need to sell my house, and they walk down that high street where now they don't need to do that, and it's all on a screen for them, and all they got to do is search for what they're looking for. That's how it's evolved.
Do you think that, I suppose this is a question for you, Google is probably, I don't know how large a company it is actually. I should probably know.
The world, so.
Is it the biggest company in the world? Is it it's the most powerful company in the world? Do you think? I would say it's the most powerful company in the world, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Can you Google in China and places like that? I don't know if they have different search engines there. I suspect they have.
I think Google is in China. I don't think.
Is
I
it?
think there's some social medias that aren't allowed in China, but I'm pretty sure Google is all over the world.
So it's such an incredibly powerful business. There's something not right about a company having that amount of power, because the reason I say that is because when you talk to people who advise about pushing your name up the ranking, they'll always tell you, oh, Google have just changed their algorithm, they've just changed this algorithm, they've just changed. So they're always, you don't really know what they're doing. They can have a profound influence on, I think, forming people's opinions, not just advertising, because they would, in a certain country, if you do a search in a certain country for a certain keyword, if they set their algorithm in a certain way, I would imagine that particular websites appear at the top. They could manipulate. I mean, it's quite a dangerous thing, isn't it? Really. I mean,
They could do. I'd like to think that they don't, but again, with the size of what Google is, I'm sure there's some inside stuff going on. But I'd like to think there isn't, but there probably is.
And you never really know. Anyway, can I ask you? So, if somebody wanted to, I've got these two things actually. Pro Interact. If somebody wanted to engage a business such as yourselves to improve their visibility online, what sort of options are available to them with your help or other people's help, without giving away all your secrets?
Well, there's two main ones when it comes to Google search. There's the PPC element, which is how Google makes a substantial part of their revenue. So that's advertising and the pay-per-click model. So every time someone clicks on one of those ads, which you see every time you do a search, doesn't matter if you're buying, selling, if you're product based or whatever it may be, there's always the sponsored ads as well as the Google shopping at the top, where Google, like I said, makes the vast majority of their revenue. Now, this is a quick win. The way I like to describe this is, especially within the property industry, if you're going to be doing Google ads and the PPC ads in particular, then it's renting your house instead of building it and buying it. Where the organic stuff, so the listings that featured under the sponsored content, that is more content led, and you have to be feeding Google with all of this information for what people are searching for. But that's building the foundations of your house. Whereby if you're looking for quick wins and leads straight away, you have to pay or rent the space at the top of Google. So it depends on the short-term, long-term aspects of a business, really. If they need leads quick and fast, and they're willing to pay a premium for them, then Google Ads is your best bet. But if you've got a more mid to long-term plan where you want to be featuring within the organic space, then that takes a hell of a lot more work. And this is where the dark art of SEO really comes in, and the whole changing of the algorithms. But that is playing the Google game. So you have to have all of your H1 headers in the right place. You need to be creating a massive content on a regular basis in order to answer the questions that potential buyers and potential sellers are asking. But that's where it can become a little bit. sticky.
Can be quite expensive, I think.
Well, it depends on the size of your business and how many different services you have, and a variety of different aspects to do with the competition levels within a certain industry. Because I'd like to think that the vast majority of businesses nowadays are in need of doing some form of search engine optimization. Just because if you're not doing it, there is certainly your competitor that is going to be doing it. So you're constantly fighting to get that ranking. And everyone's got their own ideologies as to how to best do that. But just looping back to your question earlier about the measurability of it, I would respectfully disagree in the fact that it is quite measurable, and the return and the measurable aspect of your return on investment can be quantified quite easily. Whereby you were talking about the LBC radio ads and indeed
Yes.
television ads, and if you think even 15 years ago, before the emergence of Google and being able to target demographics and target certain audiences, a TV ad would essentially be able to, or a TV company would be able to tell you that this particular time window, so let's say it's prime time between 7 and 9 o'clock at night, they think that a certain audience is going to be watching based on the types of programs that they have. But it's not measurable because you're essentially just showing an ad to an audience, and it's not measurable to a degree because you don't know who's going to be watching, who's then going to be actioning something afterwards. Whereby with Google, everything is very actionable because you know how much additional traffic you're getting to your website with the SEO activities that you're doing, or indeed PPC. So you get the additional traffic, and then you've got the trackability, as you referred to earlier, whereby you know how many additional leads you're getting to your website. So everything is very actionable. You can see and you can measure that return on investment, I think, quite easily in comparison to what you could 15 years ago.
I went to a yeah. I went to a. What do you think of this? I went to a digital agency last year, and the guy's view was that everybody was now advertising on Google and doing pay per click.
Mhm.
So his view was, why don't you go back and post your target audience a brochure, because it'll land on their desk and they'll open it. I didn't like the idea, actually. I thought it was going backwards, and I also thought what it was missing was the fact that you don't know you. It's easy to target when you know your clients,
Mm.
but if you want to expand your business, you want to find people you don't know. So I wouldn't do I mean, who does? I thought that was quite. I'm interested in your view. I thought that was quite an old-fashioned way of doing it, really.
I think
But
it certainly gets attention because it's not done anymore. Again, going back 15, 20 years where that was the main way of trying to attract people. And now we've got the emergence of what the power of Google, whereby everyone is Googling stuff. I think that could work quite effectively in order to get in front of the right people because it's not done really anymore. So if you were sending stuff directly to a managing director, CEO, I think you're more likely to make an impact because it's not as widely done anymore. But and I know that you were doing something like that, weren't you? With was it the agency side where you were sending
we're
people?
quite we're quite well. We've tried to target people. I tell. Oh, here's a question for you. Every morning, I I wake up, I look on my phone, like everyone, and you see you've had a whole host of random emails from people
Mm,
promising you the world, and you tend to delete them. You tend not
yeah,
to read them. It used to be that we would target our clients by sending them an email. And most people communicate by email,
mhm,
but it's very, very hard to communicate a message on email. I found, to someone who doesn't know you. It's the best way still is a referral. There's no question.
yeah.
But if people wanted to a target with using email traffic, how do you get people? How do you increase your chances of getting your email read?
Good question. I think and then looping back to what I said earlier, I think the best tool that I have been using over the last 5 years in particular is providing people with something to think about. Instead of saying we're very good at this and look how great we are at doing that. No one really cares about that. Let's be honest, because you're just kind of boasting about how great you are and all the clients you work with. No one really cares about that. But if you're providing snippets of information about things that you probably should be thinking about and how you can do that by yourself and instructions on how to do that, then I think that adds a hell of a lot more value than sending out an email saying, by the way, we do this, are you interested? We also do this, which might be able to help you. So it's providing that value and getting people to think about what the next step is for their business, especially that I'll talk about AI very briefly. The emergence of AI. I'll give you an example. So with some of the email campaigns that we've been sending out to some prospective clients recently, we were doing a lot behind SEO and PPC and all the tips and stuff you need for that. But I think it's quite whitewashed, and there's a hell of a lot of people sending stuff like that now. But when it comes to AI, because it's such a talking point now, and it is going to be very much part of the future, getting people to think about what the next step is with AI and how it can benefit their business and what we have been learning about AI. I have got a tremendous amount of response from sending out, have you been thinking about AI? What about this? We've learned this about how this can help your particular business. How many more people are using AI search nowadays? How you optimize for AI? People want to know about that because it's going to help their business in the immediate future, because that's where the world is going.
What do you mean?
Discussion about that.
What do you mean by an AI search? What does that mean?
Have you noticed? So when you do a Google search now, and this happens, I think, one in every 2 searches for me at the moment, but you get the Gemini AI script at the top. So even before, so let's say that you're looking for, I'm a potential vendor and I'm looking to sell my house and I want to find the best agent in a particular area. You'll type in best agent or best estate agent within this area. And then even before you get the sponsored content, where you get the Rightmoves and the Purple Bricks, and you get all the larger agency networks that are running those ads, at the top you get the Gemini, which is the Google AI, and it will give you the answer that you're looking for. So that's the new model in comparison to the traditional Google model.
I don't think I've noticed that. Let me try. Let me try that now.
Let's
Let me try that. So if I do one, you're saying best agent to sell my house. To sell my house.
To sell my house in what, and then put a location in there, Neil.
Okay, let's say okay. Best agent to sell my house in Hampstead. There you go. Right. Sponsored at the top, it says there's they've got Purple Bricks.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of agents you'll know, and then it says AI overview. When choosing a real estate agent to sell your house in Hampstead, London, you can consider things like their reputation, the services they offer, and how they can help you find a buyer. And then below it, it's got an agent. Is that what you mean by the AI search?
Can you share your screen quickly so I can just take a look at that? But that looks as if that is bang on what I'm talking about.
How interesting!
Look,
Look,
there it is.
So that's an AI. That's the answer from Google.
That's the answer from Google based on your search criteria. So instead of you then having to go through the mountains of listings on Google and trying to find and doing your own research by clicking on links and taking a look at these agents now, Google will give you an answer based on your search. So it won't give you a plethora of them.
That's very interesting. So that's very interesting. So the agent they've mentioned specifically, in fact, there are 2 actually. There's 2. Those agents, how has Google chosen that agent?
That's a very good question, and we've been doing a lot of research, and this is primarily my business partner Adam that's been doing this, as to how Google will pick an agent and make it or give it that choice within the AI search. But there's lots of different parameters around it. It will look at things to do with reviews, so it will collect all of the reviews of all of the agents within that particular area, and then identify which one is the best. It will also go through the abundance of websites and property agents within that area and search within the website to see which one is giving clarity on the type of service that they offer. And there are so many different types of criteria that it will look at.
Very
Uh,
interesting. I've never seen it before. I, I specifically noticed it did it didn't mention certain people I know in that market who wouldn't be very happy they're not mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, and this is another thing about it as well. So SEO does have some role to play within an AI answer. So if an agent is quite prevalent within that area, and you were to type in best agent in Hampstead and flick through the different agents that you know, or the different options that you have within that page, it will take that into consideration. But there are so many other factors that AI looks at apart from just what is on your website and what people are saying to give
Wow.
you the best answer to your query. But it's again talking about the dark art of SEO. This is where AI is a little bit complex, and we're trying to at the moment learn exactly what the model is looking at in order for agents to be able to optimize based on that model, so you can feature within the AI response. But this is another subject I think for another day, and I'd like to. If
I
you're
saw it.
interested in talking about it, my business partner is the man to speak to. He
It is
absolutely
really it's really interesting. That's got to be the way forward. The the I remember seeing something really interesting. It's going back a few years now because when we started our journey, we I used to talk about how the world had changed. I used to talk about Google and actually it wasn't very old. Google was actually a relatively new business when we started out. And I remember, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Google or if it was Apple. I think it was Google, and they actually had a stage with the one of the directors of the company saying, "This is how Google can book a hair appointment for you." Did you ever see that?
I didn't know. Tell me the story.
So what? So what happened was they showed it to the audience because this is when AI was starting, and you typed in and it said, "Book a hair appointment for me," and Google would phone the hairdresser and would talk to them.
Hmm.
Hello, I'd like to book a haircut. And the person on the side had no idea it was a machine.
Yeah.
And they would say, what day would you like to come in? And they would say, what, Thursday, whatever day. And then they'd say, well, we can offer you 3 or 4. And the thing that was very fun about it, Google went, let me think about that. Okay, I'll go for 4. And they booked the haircut, right? They booked it. The person at the hairdresser had no idea. And that was early AI, I suppose. Reason I mention it is I can't help feeling that down the road you're going to message or phone your local estate agent and say, "Can you sell my house?" And you'll have a machine saying, "Yes, we'll come and value it. Will Thursday be okay?" And
Yeah.
they'll tell you what the value of the house is because
Mhm.
they'll get the data online. I mean, the world is changing. Very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
And
All
it's
right,
if
look, very
you need to be
interesting.
thinking about this. You need to be thinking if you're well a business of any caliber. This if you're not thinking about this, you will be left behind. These are the people that even when Google was emerging, those types of businesses that went, oh, it's just the fad, it's just the phase. But if you don't adopt it, you learn, and you don't learn about it, you will be left behind because it is taking over.
That's what I think. I agree with you. That's what I think. Right, we've done nearly half an hour, and I think it's really interesting. So, Jack, anything you want to finish off with? I mean, I would say to anybody listening, if anyone's interested in the topic, we'll certainly put you in touch with Jack. So
Thank you, mate.
contact the business, and we'd certainly love to help you. Put people your way who are interested. But if there's anything else you would like to add,
No,
if
I don't think so. But just on the topic of AI again, and how that can be, so we're still very early days in what AI can do. So we've been learning about how the models work. But one of the fundamentals that we have been doing, and that has been of tremendous success over the last 6 months, is utilizing AI in order to get companies' SEO visibility more prevalent. So if you think about the old traditional way of doing SEO, we're focused on content for now. Everyone needs content on the website. You need to be updating your website with content, rich content on a regular basis. Now, the old school way of doing it is having someone sat there writing this content. And that takes a hell of a lot of time, and it can cost a lot of money depending on how quickly someone can get this content written. Now, if you use and can implement AI within that, you are being able to produce content at a much, much higher rate. And that's going to put you a lot higher in the stead of competition, because the competition is still going to be using the old school way of creating that content. So what we've been doing for Hamptons as a prime example, if I go back 6 to 8 months, whereby we were doing the traditional way of creating this content, getting someone to actually copyright all of this stuff, having to come up with all the ideas. Now we've developed an AI prompt for SEO for the property industry, whereby it's pumping out this content, which looks as if and feels as if it's been written by a real person, but you've got 10 times the amount of stuff being published. So utilizing that in order to get ahead of your competition, I think, is the first step for AI, and then who knows where it's going to go from that. But you need to be thinking about that, and especially if you're looking at doing some more elaborate SEO, AI has to be a component of that now. So it's just something to think about.
How interesting. How interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see if people do take it up.
Yeah.
All right, Jack.
Just on that,
Sorry.
this will be an interesting question, actually, I think, for your listeners. Where do you think AI is going to go? What do you think is going to be?
In my industry or generally?
Let's use it for your industry. So how do you think it's going to develop, and how it's going to help businesses, or where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I've actually seen it already. On a basic level, AI will write the content for a property that you're selling. That's the first thing. So whilst it might take you, X number of hours, the AI will write it for you, provided they're pulling the data from the correct data sources. But they will write the details. They will write the details for you. You won't need to spend time doing it. So I think that's on the most simple level. I think that is probably already starting to happen.
Do you think it's going to be able to negotiate deals? Do you think it's going to be able to sell those commercial properties for you? Do you think it's going to have that type of impact?
I think
percent of your staff. Like, what's?
I think AI could certainly negotiate a deal. Actually, if you think about it on a really advanced level, and you think in the world of sci-fi, imagine, there are people who, it's a bit like poker. Poker, you can read the other person, right? If you think about it, someone makes you an offer on a property, you have an intuition as an agent whether you can push them higher or they're going to do the deal, etc. If you think about it, there must be some software which will measure the pitch of someone's voice to rate whether they think they're lying, because when they say we're not paying any more, well, maybe they may. So if you think about that level of AI, that's something which a human probably can't do, but a machine can.
Yeah.
So I do think this is all down the line. I've got no idea when. I can't judge the pace of change because the property industry is still very reticent to adopt technology generally, but it might be taken out of their hands. And it's not just property, it could happen in any industry. But I do think the ultimate is you almost won't need an agent. I mean, that's the truth of it. Why do you?
Yeah,
if every other business, the only reason you have an agent at the moment is if you're selling a house, you use the agent because the agent finds you the buyer, and then they supposedly negotiate the best price for you. That's the plan. Well, if you can find the buyers yourself, and you can negotiate yourself, then why do you need the agent? And the truth is, the industry is protecting itself because the portals, unless things have changed with them and I don't know about, don't let private people list on the portals, and every single agent will use a portal, every agent. So if the private person can use the portal to find a buyer, and then they're a bit nervous, perhaps you're a bit of a nervous person, perhaps you're not very good at talking to people, so you press a button and it does the negotiation for you. Why is that? Why couldn't that happen?
Yeah, I think that's very, very plausible. It's very plausible, and I think you are very much ahead of the game in especially with the blockchain stuff that you do with the point of sale. whereby this could marry up very, very neatly. If you're already implementing a new technology in order to get a deal signed at a much quicker rate, I think AI for you would be quite
Think
paramount.
yeah, I don't know how it's hard to know how we would really use it today. I think the fundamental difference, which is almost points the direction, is that I'm pretty sure that 95% of the property market will say deals are done based upon relationships,
Mhm.
and I would say they're not anymore. And I say that because there's always, of course, you need to build someone's trust. But what we do, and I don't say this to come across to the audience as me trying to sell my business, because that's not. I'm just saying what we do is we just say, this is what we do. If you like it, work with us. If you don't like it, then don't work with us. I just say this is what we do, as opposed to we're the best, we're the best. This is what we do. That's how it works. And I do think I have been surprised how the industry hasn't adopted digital marketing, SEO thing. They really, it tends to be the big agencies because they've got deep pockets
Yeah, and
more than
you
anyone
can
else.
see that when you do any Google search for a property
Yeah,
agent location. It's usually the same property groups they.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
because the
yeah. And they
adopt.
and so, but I think it's a bit like, I'll tell you something, and I'll just finish off with this in answer to your question. I always say, if you tell people enough times that you're great, at some point they'll start to believe you.
Mhm.
So if you're marketing and you're spending money and you're putting yourself at the top of a Google search or a LinkedIn search or whatever, and you're saying we're great, people will start to believe you and they'll use you. And that's what marketing is all about, isn't it?
It's
That's marketing.
getting visibility. Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, I'll make this final point as well. I was speaking to an agent that we work with just the other day, and I think where AI, just coming back to the AI topic, can really come into fruition for the industry is with the amount of time it takes to sell a property at the moment. I know the period of time it's taking in order to get a vendor on board to the point of the deal being done. I think that window is getting larger, isn't it? I
It's been a
believe
major
like
it's been a
within the
major problem.
yeah,
It's
it's
a
a huge
major problem.
problem. And if you think about how a property agent makes their money, it's based on the completion of that property. So if that is taking longer and longer, it means they're not making as much money as they possibly could. So I think AI, specifically within the property industry, I think where AI is really going to come into play is getting that period of on the market to completion right down. So if it's at an 8-week period at the moment, being able to do all of those things, that legality in between, I think that's going to be cut in half, uh, if not even more than that. So then agents are able to get a property on, sell it, get a property on, sell it. I think that's really where it's going to come in the next year or so, which is going to be
Well,
great for an agent because they want to bring on more properties and they want to sell them quicker. That's how they make their money.
that has been the essence of one of the areas of our business where we do sell buildings very quickly. We sold a
Yeah.
building a few weeks ago in a day. In a day, I mean, it does happen, and we did the whole thing online. The residential market is a little bit different. I've learned that there are different factors that make that more difficult, but it will happen. And in fact, a lot of it does, whilst you're right, AI, a lot of it also revolves, if just to tell the audience, it does revolve around the legal system here. If you
Yeah,
go
for
to other
sure.
countries, if you go to, say, Australia, and you go to a property with an estate agent and you like it, you can go back to their office and you can sign and you've basically committed legally, subject to certain things.
Yeah.
You can't do that here. So there's a bit of legal change that's required, and I think the government has got other priorities.
Well, lawyers also like making their hourly rate as well, don't they? So it's in their best
Yeah,
interest
well,
to elongate
yeah,
this
yeah.
slightly, isn't it? But not to put a
Any-
downer on the legal system. But
No. Anyway, look, Jack, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you very much
pleasure.
to
Thank
everyone
you.
listening. Jack Baxter Mills, Raw Digital. If you're interested in learning more, just reach out directly or come through us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Pleasure.